You're listening to the My Simplified Life podcast, and this is episode number 212. Welcome to the My Simplified Life podcast, a place where you will learn that your past and even your present don't define your future. Regardless of what stage of life you're in, I want you to feel inspired and encouraged to pursue your dreams, simplify your life, and start taking action today. I'm your host, Michelle Glogovac, and I'm excited to share my stories and life lessons with you while taking you on my own journey. This is My Simplified Life. Hey friends, welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Michelle Glogovac. Today, something rare, a repeat guest. Julie Chavez is here to talk about her debut memoir, Everyone But Myself. Julie was on last year when she talked about how it came about that she is a librarian and she works with children, and it just seems so happy and makes me just smile and light up because I love our school librarian. So I know the job that she does and how fantastic she is to be working with these children every single day. And now it is her turn to highlight and talk about her book, which is all about her journey after having a panic attack and anxiety and really putting everyone but herself first. So we're talking about how that works. How does this happen that we allow ourselves to put ourselves on the back burner and yet we keep juggling all of the balls? And so we are having this discussion along with what it was like to put all of this on paper for everyone to read. Stay tuned for Julie and my conversation. Hi, Julie.
Hello, my friend. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I am so excited to have you again, a repeat guest. It's very rare, but you are worthy of it.
I appreciate that. That means very much to me, and I feel like I'm just going to emblazon it like on a polo or something so that I can walk around and just say repeat guest. That's me.
Oh, podcast merch. I like this. That is genius.
Right?
Yes. So as we've already dove in, can you reintroduce yourself to everyone who didn't listen to you the first time, but will now go back and listen?
Well, I'm excited to hear that. I am Julie Chavez. I'm the author of Everyone But Myself, which is a memoir that will be out from Zibby Books probably by the time you hear this.
It'll be today.
Hooray,
so happy
today.
Pub Day.
Oh, so exciting to think about. It's going to be here soon. So January 9th, the book comes out today. I am an elementary librarian living in Northern California. I have 2 sons. I am married to my college sweetheart, and I am now, just today, I signed my first thing where I had to identify myself as a freelance writer because I had written this piece. So it's really fun. I feel like I've always worn a ton of hats, and now I'm just adding to them. So that's me.
This is interesting because everything's Julie writes words. So I kind of just assumed that you wrote a lot of words and now you've got freelancer added to your title.
I do. So I think the Julie writes words was some early advice to me given early on. I said early twice, but you know what I mean. So it was advice given to me early on by social media. What am I trying to say? Oh, an advisor. So she came on and she said, you need to work on your discoverability, because I think I had it as, my first blog was called 25,000 words because I had read somewhere that was the number of words that a woman said in a day, the average number.
Oh, I just saw something on 16,000. It was on Instagram yesterday.
Exactly. But the difference was basically, my husband says 7, I say 8,000, 18,000 kind of thing. Like I double it, whatever. So that was 25,000 words. And she said, yeah, that makes sense, but it's just not tied enough to you. And then since Chavez is a pretty common name, she suggested that I try something else. So that's where Julie Writes Words came from. So it was sort of, I hadn't learned a lot about pitching pieces and about freelance writing. And so I'm an example of someone who's literally doing everything backwards. Like I don't, most people kind of build up to writing a book. I just sort of jumped into the deep end of the pool and luckily didn't drown, but almost did plenty of times. And then now it's like I'm learning the other things I can do to support this, because I do want to grow that part of my career. So it's just been an interesting time. I don't think I knew that I was as ambitious as I am, which has been
Ooh.
an interesting turn in kind of my life, and especially for a woman in midlife, right? To
Yeah.
think, "Ooh, I've got some goals and I'm going to go chase them down." So, yeah, so that's kind of the Julie Writes Words piece of this. But yes, I should have my very first freelance piece, even though I have written some for Zibby Mag. But those early pieces were not paid. So,
Oh, well, yay for money. Like it,
right.
bring on the Benjamins, baby.
Well, and the nice thing about doing it backwards is that you really have low expectations. So when they say, "Hey, can you write this piece?" and they'll pay you for it, I'm like, "That's great. This is fantastic news."
By the way, it was 3 cents a word. No.
Yeah, exactly. And I'd still be like, "Okay, cool. Great.
You're
That's more
like,
than
yeah, I'll take
zero."
that 25 cents. No.
Yeah, 100%. I told both my kids, they actually are excited, because I told them on the day the book comes out, I will give them each $5. That was because that was our original conversation. They were like, "Are you going to make a lot of money?" And I said, "No." And they said, "Well, are you going to pay us since we're in it?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll give you each $5." And they have held me to that. So I will be
Oh, see, they're
presenting
smart.
them.
They're
Yeah.
older than mine. Mine have just asked for a signed copy, and can we get the good book, because they know that there's a hardcover and the paperback. And so
Oh,
they saw the galleys
okay.
and they go, "But this isn't the good one, right?" I went, "No, the
Right.
good one comes in January." Okay, and we get a signed one of those, right?
Right. Well,
Yes.
that's true love. You should high five yourself, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, that means they want to be they want in on it. They want in on the fame and fortune of all of it. So good for them.
They didn't know that they're in the dedication and the acknowledgments. And so when the galleys arrived, I read it to them and Declan cried. My
Oh, that's
8-year-old
so
cried. He's like, "It's
sweet.
so beautiful that we're in it and it's so nice." But I like that yours want to get paid to be in yours.
Yeah, they want to
Mine
get paid.
can't
And
listen to this
yeah,
episode.
no, my finished copies came yesterday, and one of my kids picked it up. He goes, "Cool. I just want to read the end." And he read the last page and he goes, "Oh, that's cool." And that was it. I said, "Do you want a copy to keep in your room?" He goes, "No, I'm good." I was like, "Perfect." So yeah,
Oh,
mine are
but
less, but
teenage
no, it's
boys.
yeah, it's as it should be, honestly. And I feel the same way when they're explaining to me how they won a level on, or they won a solo battle on Fortnite, and I'm like, I good for you, man. So really, it's the same, right? That's their, I in their mind, I am playing my own little Fortnite, and they're like, "Yeah, we're real proud of you, but we really don't care that much." Okay,
I love it.
same.
I love it.
Hmm.
So let's talk about the book, because
Okay.
everybody can go back to the episode to learn about you, that you're an elementary librarian. And I love it
Yes.
because I told you that I have recently gotten to know our elementary school librarian, Mrs. Fowler. And I get to chit chat with her every time I'm making copies every Thursday, and we talk about books.
Hmm.
So let's talk about Everyone But Myself. How did this come about, and what is it about? Give us some details without giving the spoilers, because we want everybody to want to go buy it.
I love it. You know what's good about that? I actually am not the best book summarizer or reviewer for that reason, because I never want to give too much away. I don't read the backs of books.
Me
So I will
either.
not tell people too much. Okay,
I
I
dive
appreciate
right
that.
into reading
Yeah,
it, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm reading about, but I'm just going to read it. So we will see where it goes.
correct. And sometimes it can go not great places. So you have to know when to call it. So that's lesson one for that risky approach to life. But my memoir is about a season of severe anxiety and depression that I experienced after I spent too long caring for everyone but myself. And it is, I hope, a very relatable story. I know that it is in some ways because, whoever is listening, I am someone you know. I am, if I'm not very much like you, I'm very much like your neighbor or sister or cousin, because I think it's so hard to be a woman in the world. It's so hard to be a mom in the world, and to have these people that we love and care for. And because it's a parade of unending asks, we end up sometimes setting aside our needs. And I say sometimes, when I mean really all the time, right? Interruptions and things happening and kids getting sick. I mean, it's just a constant game that we play of kind of reprioritizing. But there is a cost to extended periods of self neglect. And that's where I found myself in the spring of 2018. I had gone back to work and experienced really just a crash. I had my first panic attack at the age of 38. And that led, or that opened up sort of this season. But a lot of the seeds that led to that time had been there earlier. So this is the story of not only going backward to figure out sort of where I had lost track of my own emotions, of my own needs, and also the steps I took to really come back to myself and to a place that felt healthy and whole. So it's my hope that people will read it and see themselves and perhaps also be able to make small changes in their own lives.
There were so many parts that I want to touch on because first of all, I so greatly appreciate your candidness and honesty and vulnerability in sharing this with the world, because
Well, thank you.
people don't naturally, share that they've gone through this mental health struggle, because that's truly what it is. I mean, as I read the book and I'm reading the lights on part and stuff, and I was
Yeah.
like, and then I know you. So that
Yes.
was like an extra level of like, Julie, no, like I wish that we'd known each other in 2018. Like you could have called me too, friend,
I know.
it's an extra level. So I'm like
Yes.
tearing up as I'm talking about it. But what struck me too, and I shared this with you after I read the book, was that at least for the two of us, and I'm sure there's many listeners who can relate too, is we just add things on to our plates and we don't remove anything. And so you added a job, but you didn't remove the duties of laundry, of doing the dishes, of caring for your kids, of, shuttling them around. Like we just added it on, and it's like
Yep.
no big deal. We keep doing it. And there is kind of that expectation in the house of, well, you're doing it and you're continuing to do all the other things. So what's the problem?
1,000,000%. And I think, and I appreciate that you had that care for me in it. And I hope that, I have a lot of friends who have since read it and have said the same thing, right? Like you weren't alone in that. But that's the thing that is so tricky about anxiety and depression and any real mental health kind of dark place that you find yourself, is that the main voice you're hearing is telling you that you are alone in it, that no one can help you. And so it becomes very uncomfortable to talk about during, especially. I mean, it felt impossible, but then even after, there's sort of I guess it just feels precarious a little bit. So I'm glad that I'm able to share it, and I'm in a place now where that feels okay for me, and hopefully that's helpful for other people. But I think you're exactly right. What I didn't explain is I had been at home as a stay-at-home mom for 10 years. I go back to work at the library and I literally took, like you said, 30 hours a week and I put it right on top of everything I did. And what I pushed out was space to feel or take care of myself or really do anything that would feed kind of this need. And I think too, like you said, the expectation in the house, that's an important piece of this. My husband and we have a very happy marriage. We really like each other. We're a great team. And even for us, this was a tremendously difficult moment to navigate,
Mhm.
because you don't realize how much you leave unspoken until there's a crisis. And then suddenly it's like, wait, why am I doing all this? And how do I get out of it? So I think you're right. We tend to add. And I mean, you've heard it. If you want something done, give it to someone who's busy, right?
Right.
And then you become a productivity machine where you're just getting stuff done, but that has a cost.
And then there's the people who, once you say no, they're like, "Wait, what? No, you
100%.
didn't. Can't you just do this?" I got that a lot last year. "Why don't you just do this?"
It's just one more thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I just need this. Yeah. No, that's going to be a no from me. But you're right. People people are accustomed to I mean, our culture is accustomed to the unpaid labor of women, but also the people I love are accustomed to that because it is part of the way I love them. I
Mhm.
love being available for them. So there's so much good there, and I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but I also need to be a person with boundaries for me and for them.
Yeah. I love that you reached out to professionals for help on your own, that you didn't take the initial advice that you got from the first one. You'll have to go read this because I was like, wait,
Yes.
that's what, and she wrote it down on a piece of paper.
Oh my gosh. It is. The comedy of that situation now is so amazing. And this is what I also thought is that, when I got to the end of this road, part of the reason I wrote the book is number one, on paper, I'm not a person that I'm a I'm a person who some people might assume that is sort of inoculated against a mental health struggle, right? I'm pretty optimistic. I know myself pretty well. I can communicate my feelings, and that mattered not at all. So that's a reminder too that this is not about, being, I guess, being good at it. There's sort of I think we have so many ideas about how anxiety works in particular, where it's like, well, just don't think about it. Things like that, where you just think, wow, that would be cool if I could actually do that. So I think just being reminded of that. But yeah, there are lots of moments in the book where even I, a person who can communicate, who has resources, who knew what to do in terms of reaching out for professionals, I got bizarre advice and didn't find what I needed to find. It was so much harder to find help than it should have been.
And I totally agree. Yeah, I think it applies to so many things. I mean, I reached out to my doctor literally a few weeks ago. I'm like, I'd like to talk about weight management. Can we
Hmm.
can we discuss something? Like, she goes, I'll get you a nutritionist. The nutritionist can't see me for 2 months. I'm like, well, thanks.
Fantastic.
That
That's great news.
yeah, it so I will just sit here again for another 2 months. That's awesome.
It's so
Yes.
tricky. We find that so much. And I talk about it briefly in the book, and I didn't analyze it a lot because I don't feel like I'm an expert in that area. But there's, think about how many times you went to the doctor when you were pregnant. Like a million. You go all the time. And then you're done and they just sort of leave you alone until, later, until you have to go get some hormones because you're ready to just, absolutely kick everyone to the curb in perimenopause or whatever. So it
Mhm.
just, there's this whole swath of time where it's like, we really do need access to care. And even to that point, like, I just need help here. And to be told, oh, yeah, we'll see you in 2 months is discouraging because usually
Yeah.
by the time you are getting to the point where you want to ask for help, you're already drained. You're already at the end of your coping for whatever it was. And that is very true for me. So the idea that now it's like, okay, just hurry up and wait. Cool. Thanks. I'll
Yeah.
just be right here.
I'm like, now I see why people are getting injectables online. Like, it makes sense. Like,
Yeah, totally. I don't blame you anymore, I guess.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
So
So
yeah,
true.
it's like the entire health system. We're just going on a tangent now.
Yeah, we just need to overhaul that. We can do that next Tuesday, I think. We can just overhaul it. It'll
We
be
could just do
fine.
it. Yeah, no
Just
big
do
deal.
it.
No big deal.
Mhm.
I do
100%.
appreciate Tim in your story. Want to
Yes.
give Tim a shout out. I was like, God, we need a Tim. I really need a Tim for my family and I.
You know, a primary care person is worth their weight in gold. Tim he's still our guy. We just took the boys to see him recently, and we've, since then had so many different moments and crises, and it's a person in your corner. And just so people know, Tim is our physician assistant, but he functions as our primary care person, doctor. And there have just been so many moments where he has been important to us. So when you're able to find someone, it's true. I mean, I had a moment where I thought he better not ever quit. I mean, he can maybe in like 15 years, maybe, but I don't know. He's going to have to consult me first,
Yeah,
right?
my OBGYN just retired this year. And I was like, whoa,
That's
what?
rude. Yeah.
Yeah, we've been together 15 years, lady. Like, and you had someone
Um,
send me a message about this? Like, do you
I'm
know who I
sorry.
am? Like, this is not cool.
Oh,
It's not the breakup that I was hoping for. So,
no. Gosh,
no,
these
so I
people
get
wanting
it.
to live their lives.
I
So
know.
rude.
Just because you've
But
worked
yeah.
like 30 years, please.
But you know what's amazing? It's so true. But I think what I love about, whether it's an OB, whether it's primary care person, it's someone that knows you and someone that listens. I mean, that is a lost art, I think, in our culture and without a doubt in our healthcare system. But I think for people that don't have that, it's a reminder to keep looking because clicking with someone is important, but try and look before you're at a point where you're desperate, because then you're more vulnerable to bad advice and to guidance that pulls you farther away from your intuition and not toward it.
And then we've talked about healthcare in that sense, but
Yeah,
you also did your research and found an amazing therapist.
I did. So I was fortunate that I was able to go through insurance, and Kim took my insurance. And, it's so funny when I try and shorten the story for people. And this is why the book isn't too long, so people don't need to fret. But when I went to tell the story, it goes it goes back and forth, right? I had a panic attack, and then I think I'm okay for a little bit. And then I go to see the OB, and she gives me some advice. And then going to Kim was actually really a catalyst, because it was like I was finally opening Pandora's box. And so that even created a little bit of a slide after that. And these are all things that happen sometimes when we are so disconnected and we start therapy and we actually decide we're going to go in, then we open up things that have been sitting for a long time. And it can cause temporary acute stress that wasn't there before. But I think Kim was, and still is, my therapist, and she was a great fit for me, and I'm forever grateful for her. So I think finding a therapist who gets you and who is willing to ad- not only adapt to you, but just work with you. It's a partner. It's someone that knows a little bit more than you, that can give you some tools, and she's been incredible. I'm very grateful.
That's amazing. And I love, we were talking about this before because I just talked to my therapist and we FaceTime, but you go in person. And at one point, there was a point where I had someone in town and I would drive and I was like, just driving on the freeway stressed me out so much. Cause like,
Yes.
is this even worth it? Because it's only an hour and I feel so stressed driving to get there. So I love my online therapist where I'm like, I can do it from bed, I can do it from my office, but we have to make that time too.
100%. But to your point, there's so many better options, even within, I mean, this is only 6 years ago, but I feel like with the pandemic, now everyone knows what Zoom is, all these things. I mean, that's a huge gift, I think, to people who are feeling overwhelmed by it. It doesn't have to be challenging or complicated. So, making that time, and even just establishing a relationship with someone. I think that's the other thing too, is we're, most of us tend to be feast or famine. So it's this idea of, oh, I'm going to go to therapy. You're not going to go 2 hours a week. Like, you could go once a month. You could go once every couple months. There are just so many options, but it's good to have someone in your corner for when things are tricky, because life is unexpected and change comes fast and hard. So it is good to already have that when you need it.
What would you say to someone who is putting things on their plate continuously, as we're talking about, and now we're telling them you should also go see a therapist to make
You
some
should
time
also
for
go
that?
see a therapist. Yeah. I think what I would say is, it's not a question of adding more. It's not just go see a therapist. The place to start always, and this is still true for me on a daily basis, is paying attention to yourself, because that is where everything starts. So if I pay attention to myself, I will note, let's see, this morning, for example, I was feeling overwhelmed because I have a lot happening right now, and it's the holidays, and by the time this airs, thank goodness that will be done. But there's that. The world is on fire and is going mad at every turn. And Instagram is both a tool of connection and it stresses me out. Right. So, okay, this is the way I was feeling this morning. So I have to stop and ask myself what I need. And for me, okay, today I'm going to carve out some time to listen to my book and work on the puzzle that's on my dining room table. Those are the things I will do today. And it doesn't have to be difficult. So for a person who's super busy, just ask yourself, where can you give yourself relief, right? It could be putting something off. It could be putting someone else off. But I think when you're an achiever, you stop seeing that as an option, right? So paying attention to myself, how am I feeling, looking at my to-do list, and really getting honest about what actually needs to get done and what would be nice and what would make me feel good. And then therapy is a great place to examine, well, why do I feel good when I get XYZ done? Is that serving me? You can take more time, but that doesn't have to be the first port of call. It can be as easy as, let me just pause this for a second and see how I'm doing.
I saw a great post on Substack over the weekend, and for the love of God, I can't find it. I'm like,
Oh, I
I
love it when
scrolled
that
it and I'm like,
happens. Yeah.
I wanted to quote it and tell everyone about it, but it was around writing a not to do list, especially around the holidays.
Yes.
And I was like, yes. And the list was like, I'm not going to wrap presents on Christmas Eve. I went, yes, yes, that's what I need to not do because I can't stand. It's like we go out for Christmas Eve, we have a couple drinks, and then now at midnight, I'm wrapping presents. I'm like,
Yeah.
this sucks. And you're going to be awake at 6 a.m. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to last minute shop. I'm not going to worry about, whatever it is. And I loved that kind of a list. But in my head, this is the achieving part. I'm like, well, if I'm not going to do that, then I better get on doing it right now because I have to wrap
Even
those
as you said
presents.
that, that's what I was thinking. I was like, shoot, so you're going to have to do it earlier as opposed to like, wait. That is an excellent question. What can you take off your plate? I know there is something because we all have things that we can take off. And because there are a lot of things you can't. And so that's why when people say, oh, you have to let certain things drop, it's like, well, which things? Because it all feels important to me. So, but getting honest about that and finding some time. But yes, it is. The holidays are just rife with it. And then, now we're in New Year, and that's the whole new year, new you. Like, I'm going to work out every day. And, I tried to do this handstand program one year where I was like, this is the year I'm going to do a handstand. And I
Why?
think I was 41. I don't know. Cause I was like, this is what I need to be happy. Is to be able to handstand in the middle of a room, even though I've never done a day of gymnastics. And so, yeah, I'm with it too, but that's a good reminder that no matter where you are in the year, the question is, okay, sure, that's great. Is it right for me? Do I have space for it? Do I want to have space for it? Right?
Yeah.
So, but it's something that you have to do all the time.
So, what has people reading the book done? What are the reactions you're getting? What is it like to have your life out there for the world to read about, especially of this moment?
Yeah.
This was a big moment in your life that continues, and now everybody knows about it, which obviously you're okay with because you wrote the book.
Yes.
But
Yes.
that's to have someone like myself say, oh, Julie, oh, I would have been there for you, like, I now know that you were in the bedroom, and to know all
Yeah.
of these things. What is
Yeah.
that like?
I don't I'm a pretty open book, which is funny because I had been so closed down during that time, but there's nothing in the book that causes me stress or shame for anyone to know about. So that is a good thing. And I have enough distance from it that I know that. I am noticing, and I think this is true for most people. This is my story, but I think most people are seeing it through their own lens.
Right.
So there is an element of when people are saying how they responded, that they took something away from it, or that it's not really about me. This is just an example of a story, right? And I think also knowing that, and I think people can know this too. I am a person who has suffered from anxiety and depression. That season of life is not all I am. It's not all of me. And that is a wonderful thing to know and think about, right? Where it's like, hey, this is something I've gone through and it might happen again. And that's okay. And so this idea that, when I first started talking about the book, I would say my recovery from anxiety and depression in my elevator pitch. And then I stopped saying that. And that's why I call it a season of anxiety and depression. So I think knowing that it's not all of who I am. And I mean, I've never been very private. So I think it's been okay overall, and hoping that, I think the feeling of knowing that some people are helped by it or validated by it, for somebody to read it and go, oh, okay, yes, that makes sense to me. I mean, that's everything. So it's totally worth it.
And is it weird to have people be like, I read your book?
Yes, it is weird. Right. And also I remember saying to something to someone recently who had read the book, and I said, "Oh, and like Amy, my sister," and they're like, "Yeah, I know." And I thought, "Oh, right. You do to some extent know these people." So I think knowing the players in my life I find it kind of fun though. I think it just is like, I love my life. I feel really fortunate for all of its parts and all of its mess. And so it just feels like drawing more people into my circle. So I'm sure that's why I'll have to stay off, reviews, because I'm sure there will be people that it doesn't work for them. So that's fine too. But for now, most people have just been very kind and gracious and have seemed to appreciate that I was willing to tell them all the nitty gritty.
I don't get people who leave bad reviews. Like, that's a total time waste.
Oh
Just
my
don't leave a
gosh.
review if you don't like it. It's as simple as that. Uh, I love the other day you posted a picture of Mando, and I don't know why I've never seen him before. I don't know if you don't
Oh,
normally post pictures, but you posted and I was like, that's what he looks like. Now
that's
I've got
so
like the full book
funny.
in my head playing out because I've seen your sons many times. So I knew what they looked like and I could picture them all. And I know your sister. I'd met your sister before reading the book. So
Yes,
like that all
yes.
played in. And I was like, I wonder what this Mando guy looks like. Now I know. So
You do. Yes. It is funny because I think, maybe I haven't posted a lot, but it is interesting. I mean, people will know these are real people and they're my real people. So, but luckily they are very gracious about it with sort of having that visibility. And I think also, and I love that you called him Mando because I usually call him that to joke with him. He is usually and I should have described this in the beginning of the book. He's Mondo
oh.
because it's short for Armando. But
Ah.
but we get Mando all the time, and sometimes I call him Mando Calrissian, which is actually really fun. So, but yeah, so he is one that I think the best part is that he sees the value in it. But yeah, I mean, you can look us up on my Instagram and see what we all
Mando.
look like. Yeah. But you know what I need to do is I need to post. I have a picture of myself during that time. I was so on the day that I did the dance performance, I have because that was Nolan's last day of school, and I have a picture of it. And I was looking at it the other day and I thought, man, what a gift to see how different I am inside and out, because I was very thin during that time and I was very, very sad. And so looking at that picture, I mean, it's kind of funny. Like, yeah, you have this Instagram thing, but it's just a reminder too that, you know, things things can grow and change, and that's a gift. So yeah, people can just scroll right back in my Instagram and get all in there. It's going to be great.
Oh, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud to know you, to call you friend. You're amazing. And I'm so glad this book is out there for everyone to read and to not only read about you and get to know you, but to relate to it, know that they're not alone. Because I think it's really what everybody needs. And I'm grateful for you.
Thank you, my friend. It's so wonderful to hear that, and the feeling is totally mutual. And I love this, right? It's
Yeah.
like, sure, everyone knows that I'm a disaster area, but that's okay
No.
because but that's the humanness of us, and this is what it gets us, is connection, right? And
Yes.
that's the other thing. If you are a person who's struggling, or if you feel like you have too much on your plate, talk to your people. And that can be anyone. And you might get support in a surprising place. So I think just being willing to say to our friends, to the people we love, I am not doing well with this, it's what breaks it open between us. So
Yeah.
I'm thankful that you and I have that both through this book and then in real life. I'm very grateful.
Me too. Oh, we're gonna end up crying. Shit.
And also, I can't wait for your book, which we will be celebrating
Thank you.
so soon. How to Get on
Thank you.
Podcasts. And I'm living proof of it, everyone. Proof that it works.
Thank you. Where can everyone find the book? Where can they go buy it?
They can buy it everywhere today. It is available in all formats from Zibby Books today. So it's hardback, paperback, ebook. And then also, if you want to hear the audiobook, I was very fortunate to be the one to record that. And I loved it. So I'm so happy, and go get it anywhere.
Everyone but myself. Just so we have the
Everyone But
title
Myself.
too.
Yes. Yes. Man, I really need to work on that. Everyone But Myself by Julie Chavez. And also, for more information, you can look at my Instagram, Julie Writes Words, or you can go to zibbybooks.com.
And what's your website too?
JulieWritesWords.com. Yes, I made it easy. I really do follow advice well. They said, make it all the same. And I said, okay.
Thank you so much, Julie, and congratulations today.
Thank you, friend.
Friends, as we start this new year, it's time to start thinking about yourself. Not everyone but yourself. You really need to put yourself first. And I say this to you as much as I say it to myself. It's a busy season. It's school's back in session. And what are we doing with these new years, new resolutions, all those things? Put yourself at the top of the list and start by ordering Everyone But Myself by Julie Chavez and published by Zibby Books. And give yourself some time and some grace. Allow yourself to read it and make space for what you want to do and what you deserve to do. I highly recommend it, and I know that you will love reading Julie's absolutely relatable memoir and her journey. And one last reminder, next week, January 17th, How to Get On Podcast comes out. Pre-order today so you will receive your book when it is published on the date. Thanks so much, friends.